I'm Sheybani, founder of Starting Over. Today I wanted to put a little video together on how to prepare for a marathon. And there's a couple of basic assumptions that I'm going to be making in this video. One, that you're running on the average of 3 to 4 times a week, and that you're fairly comfortable with about a 4-mile run. And you're running it without a lot of angst. The reason I wanted to put this little video together today, it being the start of the spring, is typically the prime season for running marathons is late September, early October, and you need to give yourself a bit of time to train for these things. Put a link below for the Chicago program, and you can pull it out of books too, the Marathon Ultimate Training Guide. You can that I've used a couple of times, and it's tried and true. And what that involves is that you'd be running anywhere from 3 to 4 times during the week. And your runs will be about 4 miles, 6 miles. Occasionally, if you want to mix things up a little bit, you throw an 8-mile run in the middle of the week. The real secret is the Saturday morning long run. If you haven't gotten to a point where you're running 3 to 4 times a week and that you can handle a 4-mile distance, check out my program, How to Start a Running Program, and then get back to me later, or check this video out a little bit later. First thing that we need to pay attention to is we need to find a marathon. And when I'm looking for a marathon, I will Google marathons. I will also check out Runner's World is one of these terrific magazines, and if you're looking in the back of Runner's World, they typically have a section called Races and Places that give a whole listing of fun marathons that are going to be taking place, their dates, and how you go about registering for them. If you're running your first marathon, usually people are choosing to run a marathon that's local. When I first ran a marathon, I chose the Hartford Marathon. If you're not going to run local, check out the big city races, because there's something about running a city marathon the first time. There's a lot of energy in a crowd. You're so psyched, you get so motivated by people cheering you on. So when you're choosing your marathon for the first time, you want to be very careful and examine the website. I know that I've gotten caught off guard when I've chosen to run a marathon and I had no idea how hilly it was. So take a look at the race course when you're choosing this. You need 18 weeks to train. That's 4.5 months. So when you're choosing a marathon, you want to pay attention to that starting date, the race date, and be able to work backwards. When you choose your marathon, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sign up, you're going to pay the money, and you are going to write that starting date into your book in stone, in blood. Okay, so you've got your starting date. This is where all the fun comes in. This is where the real commitment comes in. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to get a calendar book. If you don't have a calendar book already, you're going to buy a calendar book. And you know that you're going to run 3 or 4 days during the week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever days those are. You're also going to be running a long run on Saturday. So, just as you are writing this into stone with your blood, you're going to be placing the exact distance that you're going to run on the exact day you're going to run. You're going to treat each of these dates that you've written into your calendar the same way you would a business appointment. You're not going to be canceling them unless you have a major artery bursting or one of your children have fallen down 15 flights of stairs and need to go to a hospital. If you're traveling, it means going to the concierge and asking for a map of the area. It means standing on a treadmill and running in the mornings in a hotel. If it's raining, you go outside. When I would go out to hotels and I would be traveling, if there were no concierge with a running route, which they often have in major hotels, I would take a watch and I would go out knowing that I ran 10-minute miles. I would go out for half an hour, which would be 3 miles, and at the 30-minute mark, I would turn around and run back. I knew roughly that I was running 6 miles. I'd also suggest getting a running buddy. Having a commitment to yourself is one thing, but when you're committed to other people and you don't want to let them down, it's a huge help. And you have miles and miles to go, lots of entertainment, lots of great stories. It's a great way to connect. It's a great way to build a sense of community with people as well. And the motivation that you get from having to join someone and being around somebody is enormous. Regardless of the weather, you're out running. And if you really aren't sure how to run in foul weather, check out my video, How to Run in Shitty Weather. You'll get lots of tips. So let's talk about the long run. The whole secret to running a marathon is your ability to run a long run every weekend. My long run is always on a Saturday morning. This sounds sick, but I love a Saturday morning run. And here's how the Saturday morning long run works. And obviously you can do this on Sunday or any other day of the week. You begin your first Saturday morning long run by running 6 miles. And if you run 3 to 4 miles during the week, 6 miles on a Saturday is not a long stretch. So the first Saturday of your long run training program, you run 6. The following Saturday, you add 2 miles on and you run 8 miles. The following week after that, on a Saturday, you come right back down to 5 miles. So you reverse a little bit. Each week, as things progress, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to build 2 miles and then drop it back. For instance, you run 6 miles, 8 miles, then 5 miles. Then you run 8 miles, 10 miles, drop it back to 7 miles. And you have that slow progression. Again, you check out the schedule in the Chicago program. You'll understand completely. The reason you are dropping back on occasion is you need the break, physically and psychologically, that you're not constantly pushing forward, because there are moments you'll feel desperate, believe me. And the moment that you go from 12 miles to 14 miles is that cranky period. It's that section where you're really pushing yourself. And you'll see, though, that 14 to 16, 16 to 18 isn't as bad as you thought. The key to the long run is you never run longer than 20 miles. You never have a Saturday morning long run longer than 20 miles. And it's one of the reasons that marathons are considered to be 2 separate races. The first race is 20 miles long. The second race is 6.2 miles, because in training you've never gone beyond the 20-mile mark, and it is the whole section of what your brain can do and how far your body can push without knowing for a fact you can do it. And the truth is, you can do it. If you can run 20 miles, you can absolutely run 26.2 miles. So I wanted to talk about a couple of tips for doing the Saturday morning long runs, because you're out for long periods of time. Because you're doing a lot of running in the summertime, you want to make sure that you're getting up at the ass crack of dawn, because if you're running at 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours, 3 hours later when you're coming in, it's usually about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and you will not want to be running. We go out 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. When we come home, it's 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, somewhere in there, and the sun hasn't shot us. You're running a lot of mileage, and I'll remind everybody, I wear a size 8 street shoe. I wear a size 8.5 running shoe. The longer distance you run, the more you'll understand why you need to have half a size larger so you don't screw up your toenails. Remember, always order your running shoes a half size larger than what you wear in your street shoes. The other item that I carry with me on Saturday morning long runs is my running belt. And in my running belt, obviously I have a water bottle, and I learned that this will typically, a bottle this size will take me 20 miles. I also carry a couple of goos. These are basically straight sugar, and you want to pop a goo about once every 8 miles. And you're not going to be popping goos until you probably get to the 12-mile mark. You don't need to supplement what you're doing before 12 miles or 14 miles. Once you start running 12 miles, then you want to be eating these about once every 8 miles. Beyond just water, you want to be adding an electrolyte tablet. This is goo. There are a lot of other electrolyte tablets. You can also use Gatorade. I use a dilution of Gatorade. And you need to keep your electrolytes balanced. That's why you want to have an electrolyte solution, not just water. In the hot summer months, you need to maintain that because you lose a lot of your electrolytes through sweat. The other thing you're going to need to carry in your belt, I'm sorry to say, is toilet paper. Once you start running 12 miles, 14 miles, there will be an incident at some point where you're ducking behind a bush and not just to pee. Something about loosening yourself up. It's happened to me a couple of times. Don't be surprised, don't be shocked, don't be embarrassed. There'll be times you just seriously need to do a poo-poo in somebody's backyard, sorry to say. Another thing for friction and foot care, this is Aquaphor. Before I set out on a long run, I will rub my feet down with this. It's a kind of a heavy grease. I'll also put it under my arms, sometimes between my thighs, any place where you're going to get friction, because once you start sweating, once you start having that constant friction, you're going to want to solve the rough red patches that you'll develop by aquaphor. So here's a couple of other ideas I'd like you to keep in mind. Don't think that you have to be 4% body fat in order to run a marathon. There's actually a division called the Clydesdale division, where there are people, women over, I believe, 170 pounds, men over 190, 200 pounds, that run marathons. And they're some of the fastest people I've ever seen. So if you're a big person, don't use that as an excuse not to run a marathon, because it's absolutely not true. You do not have to be a starving Kenyan to be a marathoner. Remember too that each mile that you run is approximately 100 calories burned. So just because you're training for a marathon, do not, under any circumstances, think that you can eat whatever you want. If you're running 12 miles, you've burned about 1,200 calories. Terrific. If you're running 4 miles, you've burned 400 calories. You will not be able to eat whatever you want. You'll be able to eat more, but not as much as you want. So forget about equating running a marathon with being able to eat what you want. Carbs in this instance are your friend. A lot of people are really into the Atkins diet. They're totally meat. They're into the cheeses and the fats, and they eschew carbohydrates. If you are a runner, you need carbohydrates. You're going to need breads and cereals. You'll need fruit and vegetables. Load up on the fruits and vegetables by all means, but do not think that you can eliminate carbohydrates from your diet if you're a heavy distance runner. Just don't do it. Remember that you can always plot your mileage in a car. One of the most enjoyable games I have with my husband is we will set out to find a 14-mile loop. We'll get in our car and we'll go over a hill and dale and we'll start tracking down all of the mileages. You will start exploring sections of your town, sections of your friend's town if you're running with friends that you never knew existed. Enjoy the process. Plot mileage with a car or on a speedometer on your bicycle. Slow is okay. If you're used to being a fast runner, if you're running 8-minute mile paces, get used to the idea of slowing down, because distance is very different from speed. Be okay with stopping once in a while and having a walking break. If, like me, when I first started running marathons, you have little kids at home, your Saturday morning long runs are a bit of a challenge. Particularly if you're single, you don't have kid coverage. One of the things I discovered when my kids were 8 years old, 10 years old, is I would do a lot of my long runs on a treadmill at the local gym. I'd carry my phone with me, so if there were an issue, my kid could call me, I could get off the treadmill, and I could go home 5 minutes away. The other thing is, find a babysitter in your neighborhood, somebody who's 16, somebody who's 15, who's happy to come to your house at 5 in the morning, sleep on your couch, and get paid for it. Don't use little kids as an excuse. Do it on the treadmill. Get a babysitter who'll come sleep on the couch. You can do this. And remember this. You're setting out on an adventure that most people are too afraid to ever undertake. You're doing something most people never dare to do. Remember that. Set it in stone. Pay the money. Commit. Write down your running dates. Keep your appointments. Keep the commitment to yourself. Don't dabble. When you come to the marathon day and you run that race and you've trained all that time, the minute you cross the finish line is the minute you truly find yourself, what you're capable of on your own.